What happens when a former TV news anchor joins the other side and starts a campaign to tell the truth? Well, the left freaks out and does everything it can to shut him up. They swatted him. They condemned him on social media. They did everything they could to silence him. It didn't work.
Your show's a big hit. It's a big success. You do fantastically. Your ratings are great, and we're very proud of you.
This is Unshaken and Unafraid with Joe Pags.
In this episode of Unshaken and Unafraid with Joe Pags, two incredible interviews, one with Lara Trump, the other with Ed Martin. Lara Trump, of course, the president's daughter-in-law, but she's a whole lot more than that. Was she almost a U.S. senator? Of course, she was the RNC Co-Chair, and they were really successful in 2024, obviously. Plus, what is it like to be one of the hottest new hosts on Fox News Channel? We talk about that, her family, her upbringing, the work ethic she got from her parents, and a whole lot more. And then we've got Ed Martin. Ed was the U.S. attorney choice of President Donald Trump for Washington, D.C. But one Republican, that guy Tom Tillis, decided he didn't want this guy to be that guy. We're going to break that down, plus what really happened on January 6th, and now in his new role, looking into it's a working group about weaponization. What might he uncover, and what news does he break on this podcast? First, though, we start with Lara Trump. Unbelievable pleasure to have Lara Trump on the program. We've been friends. Well, I call us friends. Can I say friends?
You can say friends.
We've been friends probably 3, 4, 5 years. I think maybe since 16.
Yeah.
When we went to the convention in Cleveland. We got a bunch of pictures of you and Eric and the president and everybody else. So nice to meet you face to face.
I know. Is that
How are we friends that long and we haven't met?
I don't know what's happening. But by the way, it's been more than 3 or 4 years. 2016 was almost 10 years ago, which is crazy.
I look a lot older. You look exactly the same. How do you do that?
Right answer.
All right, before we get into all the nitty-gritty, I've got to ask you, David Hogg, the rise and fall as the vice chair of the DNC. Lara, the DNC is so screwed up right now that they got rid of this guy, and the reason was they didn't follow their own gender rules. Wait, what are we looking at? I mean, are they in disarray as badly as I think they are, or should we not take that for granted?
Well, I don't think you can ever take anything for granted, but man, they are in deep. It's really bad for the Democrats. Yeah, I mean, leave it to them to come up with some DEI nonsense. The truth is with David Hogg, he actually says things that they should probably pay attention to.
I agree.
You know, he went on Bill Maher and he talked about the fact that they were losing young white men, that they have all kind of abandoned their party, that they're losing these big swaths of the electorate because they don't make any sense.
Right.
And they're not speaking to these people. And he does have some good ideas. It's a little different than the tactic I took with Michael Whatley when we were chair and co-chair.
Right.
You kind of want to embrace your party and maybe figure that stuff out behind the scenes. But the Democrats are in so deep right now. And the truth is, they have a problem because instead of putting out great ideas for the American people, they're all about stunts.
Yeah.
Sitting on the Capitol steps.
What is that?
Cory Booker doing his a marathon overnight, thing on the floor. This stuff does nothing for the American people. It just makes everybody kind of look at them like they're a bunch of lunatics. And then they look at what President Trump is doing.
Yeah.
And man, is he delivering on his promises. So it's so crazy to me that they continue down this path. But I keep saying, look, if this is how they want to operate, then come 2026, they're going to have a really hard time in these midterms.
I agree with you. It's Lara Trump. She's the host of The Right View, but also the host of the brand new Fox show, which is the hottest show on the network, My View.
Thank you.
I talked to you about this before. There's a reason you're calling everything The View, isn't there?
Well, so to go back, Joe, here's how it all started.
Okay.
I think about a show called The View.
Yes.
And I want to be the exact opposite of those
and
ladies.
You are,
because those people are absolute lunatics as well. These are people who you actually get dumber listening to their commentary versus when you tune in, hopefully, to My View on Fox or The Right View on Salem. And so, when I initially thought about these names, I said, you know what? It is My View. This is The Right View. But if I can also give a little nudge to the ladies of The View, why not?
No, I think that's awesome. Your presence, if you haven't met Lara Trump in person, your presence is immense.
Oh.
Your aura.
That's very nice.
Whoa, it's Lara Trump. There she is. Has that always been the case? When you were a kid in North Carolina, like me growing up, I use my voice for my living now and my presence for my living now. I didn't say anything probably until I was 3. Just observed everything. Took everything in, all the information I could. Then
they couldn't stop you talking.
Right, and then my parents were like, what happened to him? Growing up, were you shy? Were you out there? Were you sporting? You're a very sporting person now. Yeah. Did you always have this effervescence, do you think? I know it's odd talking about yourself that way, but what do you think?
I've never thought about it. It's funny. I was a big sports kid. I mean, I played every sport there is out there. And I think that does give you a certain level of competitiveness. I think it gives you confidence. I think it shows you teamwork, which has all been beneficial to me and, the roles that I've served over the past several years.
Right.
But yeah, I think we all go through a little bit of a shy phase, an awkward phase. Imagine that. I was taller than all the boys in like 8th grade, like way taller than all the boys. And I'll never forget my cousin, Victoria, was an entire foot shorter than I was. And she was so cute. And all the boys liked her. And I was taller than all of them. And my mom and dad used to always say, one day you'll be glad you're tall. And I am now because I married a guy who's 6'5". So it worked out.
Right. No, it makes a lot of, I'm 6'1", and I still feel short sitting next to you. What's interesting is, we don't know anything about your upbringing, but the last time I spoke to you on my show, I love that you said my work ethic, because we were talking work ethic, but we were talking Trump work ethic.
Yeah.
Which is real. It's a real thing.
Oh,
but
very.
You said I got it from my parents.
I did.
Tell me about your parents.
Yeah, so I grew up in a middle-class family in North Carolina, and I don't want to get all Kamala Harris on everybody, but they were small business owners.
I was going to say anything.
Yeah, I didn't want to get like too crazy here, but they were. Right. I had everything I ever needed, but not everything I ever wanted.
Gotcha.
They made us work hard.
Yeah.
I was awakened at 8 a.m. on Saturday mornings, my brother Kyle and I, by my dad with a bugle to get us out. And he played Reveille.
Are you serious?
Yeah, yeah. To wake us up in the morning, and we had to go out and do yard work. And then at 14, we both got jobs, part-time jobs on the weekend or during the summer. And so my parents made us work for what we have, and I saw them working hard. As small business owners, they were working around the clock. It never stopped for them. And I think that the greatest lesson I ever learned really was actually trying out for cheerleading. Now, here's an interesting story.
Okay. You're way too tall to be a cheerleader.
I know, but that's why I had to push the boundaries a little, Joe. And when they told me, we're not sure, I said, I think I'm sure. So I played all these different sports, but I wanted to try out for cheerleading. And when I tried out, I did not have a back handspring. So I did not make the JV cheerleading team, the year I tried out.
Right.
And I remember my dad, I got very upset. My dad telling me, you can either sulk and you can kind of get upset about it, or you can work hard and then go back and try out next year. Maybe you'll make it. I worked so hard over that next year. I got a back handspring. And then when I tried out, I made varsity the next year because I'd worked so hard for it. And that was one of the moments where I saw how my failure was actually a gift to me, and how no matter what happens, you just persevere and you work hard and you achieve whatever it is you want to achieve. And so I have to be eternally grateful to my parents for all that.
It sounded like the Michael Jordan story, who didn't make the JV team, or he got cut from the JV team.
He went to my high school, not the same time.
Really?
I'm not that old.
No.
But the same athletics director, the same basketball coach who cut Michael Jordan, Fred Lynch, was the basketball coach when I was there and the athletics director when I was
Jordan
there.
thanks him.
Yes.
You thank your father. My father said, you're going to be on TV, you're going to be on radio, what are you, stupid? Go dig a ditch. And I said, well, watch me. And I think that's if you're made the way that you're made, that's a motivating factor. Some people hear that and then they crawl into a shell. What advice would you have for people that hear negativity and say, I must really be that person who can't do it? And they don't really grab, like I'm the guy in the gym and I work out a lot. If I don't have somebody screaming a bad word in my face to lift that weight, you little whatever, I probably won't lift the weight. I mean, that really does motivate me. But there are people that will cower and be shut down by that. They just have different personalities than we do.
Right.
What advice would you give them to not take that to heart and maybe use it as fuel?
Well, I think you have to. I think President Trump is probably the greatest example of that. If you look at what this man has been through over the past, I'm going to say 9 years, but really the past 4 for sure. The way that he has been attacked mercilessly, the way that everything possible has been thrown his direction, even assassination attempts.
Unbelievable.
And he never for 1 second thought about turning his back and saying, you know what, I don't know if I should do this. For me, the way I try to deal with myself is I really believe whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And so if you believe and you manifest in your head that you want to do something, keep thinking about yourself in that position. I learned this when I ran track. You have to see yourself crossing the finish line first. And the more you think about it, and the more you visualize whatever it is, crossing the finish line first, becoming whatever it is you want one day, I believe you really do manifest that. And when you continue to think about it and do things that take you a step closer to that, I believe you can achieve it.
It's Lara Trump on Unshaken and Unafraid, because sitting with you, I almost said it's the right view.
I almost said the name of your show. She's the host of The Right View, also
Really
My View,
off.
over on Fox. Go and check it out. What do you love about North Carolina? Tell me about North Carolina. Sam, my daughter, who you just met a little while ago, lived there for a while. She loves it. What about North Carolina don't I know?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think it's the greatest state in the country.
Okay.
It is. When I go home to Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina, which same house I came home from the hospital to, my parents still have, there's a smell of marsh and sea water in the air that just kind of revives me.
Okay.
You have the ocean on one end, you have the mountains on the other end. In between, you got a lot of really good sports and college sports teams.
Incredible.
The people are kind. It is the South, and I'll tell you what. Growing up there, not only did I get the greatest food, I believe, in the entire world.
Really?
Collard greens are one of my favorite.
I don't think I've ever had a
foods out
collard
there.
green. I don't think
Well,
so.
my uncle Durwood was the absolute best at cooking
His name
them.
is Durwood. He's got to be making some collard greens.
You know how to cook a collard green, believe me. Not only is the food, I think, the best in the world, but I think the people are so kind and so genuine. And every time I go back, I'll go for a run close to my parents' house on the beach.
Okay.
And it's so funny because it's early in the morning. And, I lived in New York for like 16 years.
Right.
You go out for a run in New York, nobody's making eye contact. Nobody wants to look at you. Nobody's talking to you. You go out for a run in Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina. Everybody you pass is like, good morning. Have a great day. They're great people. So it's all good. I absolutely love the state, and it will forever be home for me.
I'm guessing Eric wasn't hanging out in North Carolina. How do you guys get together? How do you even meet?
So it's the least romantic story ever. We both happened to be out at the same time in New York City at a nightclub, but I wasn't.
Stop it.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't going to go out this
You didn't
night.
meet Eric Trump at a nightclub.
I know. When does this work out? Like, when does that happen? But I did. And I was not going to go out.
Okay.
But my friend begged me because she had a friend in town. I mean, I'm in sweatpants. I'm going to watch a movie. I was going to have a night in and hang out. And she begged me to go out. And I have to be thankful to my roommate, Marielle, because had she not dragged me out that night, Eric and I would have never met. And then the rest is history.
It's amazing. You must see him across the bar. He's 6'5".
That's what I noticed first is how tall he was.
By the way, when you meet him, do you know who he is?
I didn't know a guy named
Stop
Eric
it.
Trump existed.
Really?
Did you know Eric Trump existed 17 years ago?
Well, no.
Exactly.
Not 17 years ago, no.
No, I knew of Donald Trump. I knew of Ivanka because I got like Teen Magazine or something, right? But I don't even think I knew my brother-in-law Don existed.
Right.
I'm sure he'll be
Maybe
very
from The
upset about that.
Apprentice.
But I certainly didn't know a guy named Eric Trump existed.
Right.
And I did notice my kind of group of friends was kind of starting to hang out with his group of friends. I was like, who's this tall guy? Because I'm in heels.
Yeah.
I'm a tall drink of water. I'm 5'11", flat-footed.
Right.
And so I said, oh, this guy's taller than me in heels. This could work out.
Nice.
And we spent the whole rest of the night chatting. And he got my number. And the next day he texted me. And instead of spelling my name Lara, he spelled it with a U. And I was like,
Wow.
maybe not.
Wow, Eric
But
Trump.
it did work out.
You almost blew it, buddy.
He almost lost it.
So you meet him at the bar. You guys start hanging out. At what point do you realize he's part of the Trump family? And is there any apprehension? Because that film is under the microscope all the time.
Yeah. Well, I learned after we left that night, actually, one of the girls who worked at the bar was like, do
you know who that was?
Who that guy
Come
was
on.
you were talking to all night. And I said, who? He told me his name's Eric. She goes, Eric Trump. I was like, who's that? She said, oh, that's Donald Trump's son. And so immediately, yes, sadly, my response and my reaction was like, I don't know about this. Maybe because you have a preconceived idea of what someone with a name like that, who grows up in the way that we all imagine the Trump family grew up, would be like. And it took us 3 months to go out on our first date. We were both so busy.
Serious?
Yeah, I moved to New York to go to culinary school of all things. So I was working 2 jobs. I was in culinary school. He had just started at the Trump organization, so he's trying to really prove himself and was traveling all over the world. And so we would make a plan, and one of us would have to cancel. 3 months later, on July 2nd, I remember the date.
Nice.
We went out on our first date, and we did not order a single piece of food for 4 hours because
Really?
we were
Just
so
talk.
engrossed in conversation.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's Lara Trump. Go and check out The Right View and then My View. My View is on Fox. It's the hottest new show on Fox. The Right View is on Salem Network. Go and check out the podcast. It's amazing. So you've got 2 kids now. It's Luke and Carolina.
Yep.
How are they?
They're
first of all?
awesome. They're so good. Yeah.
Mom and Dad travel a lot, but
We do.
I always see you with pictures with them. You're always working out with them. You're always playing with them. I see the 4 of you together as a family. Is that hard to do?
It's
To find
hard.
time to have all 4 of you together in the same place?
Yeah, I mean, look, we try to prioritize it. I think when Eric and I both have crazy schedules, and it's not easy when you have young kids to travel like we do. But we try to say on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday every week, no matter what, we're all going to be
Beautiful. I love
together.
that.
And Sunday nights are our family dinner night. And we turn down a lot of people. They'll say, oh, you want to get together? We're in town. We say, no, this is our family dinner night. Nice. And we always have Sundays for that. But you know what? When I'm home, I'm super present. I'm taking my kids every morning to drop them off. I'll get on the first flight out just so I can get back in time to tuck them in bed at night. I want to be there for every, gymnastics practice, soccer practice, basketball game. You try your best and you try to be there for all the things.
I love it. It's Lara Trump. I know that there are people waiting for you to do things here. I appreciate you sitting down with me. On. Let me ask you a couple of last questions that I think people really want answers to. How close were you to becoming Senator Lara Trump?
Well, very close, I think.
Really?
Twice, actually. Because if you remember back in 2022, there was an open Senate seat in the state of North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
And no one more so than my father-in-law wanted me to, he wanted me to run for that. And we talked about it a lot. And I really considered it, but that's right around the time that we were actually thinking about moving to Florida.
Right.
And so we ended up making the move to Florida. And, I also looked at the time I would have to spend away from...
You'd have to live in North Carolina.
You'd have to live in North Carolina, of course, which we considered as well.
Right.
But Florida ended up being a better fit.
You wouldn't do the Letitia James thing. Say that you live someplace.
Oh, yeah.
You wouldn't do that part.
I would not do that part.
All right, so that could have happened. You would have been elected easily, but I get it. So you're moving to Florida.
But then we moved to Florida.
I think most would say, yeah.
We moved to Florida, and then, yes, Marco Rubio vacates his Senate seat, and I really actually struggled with that decision. I really considered it, and I really thought for a while that I was going to do it. And then actually Fox came to me, and we had started having conversations about this show. And, I talked to Katie Britt, who is the youngest woman, female senator on the Republican side. She has 2 school-age children, and I started talking to her about the time commitment and being away from my kids. I said, you know what? It's not the right time, not right now. Maybe in the future, but it just felt like it was the wrong time to be at least 4 days a week away from my kids in Washington, D.C. And the best part is my father-in-law loves to tell me, you're the only person who could have been a senator twice and the only one who turned it down. I'm like, maybe another time.
You actually do a pretty good impersonation of him. It's Lara Trump. Go check out everything she does. I always appreciate the time and the access. I love your role at the RNC. You being the co-chair at the RNC brought this election home. I think we're going to have trouble in the midterm if we don't have people as strong as you at the RNC. I'm glad that we're both speaking at a GOP thing today.
Yeah.
What does the future look like? And by the way, I like you in the role you're in now. I think the way that you disseminate the information, how pleasant you are, and how connected you are with the audience, I think that works way better. I didn't really want Dan Bongino to be the deputy FBI guy because we miss him now doing what he was doing, right?
It's hard because you miss those people.
So what's the next step to make sure we keep this steamroller going? Because as we just talked about, the DNC is in shambles, but they're going to figure it out eventually. So what do we do to keep it going?
You got to look out for them. They get real slippery as we've seen in previous situations, shall we say. So Michael Whatley and I were chair and co-chair. Michael Whatley is still there as chairman.
Right. Had him on recently. Great guy.
Yeah. And he and I, what we really knew we had to do this past election, all of those methods are still in place. We're going to have poll watchers and poll workers and eyes in the room every time a vote is cast and counted. They are going to go out and make sure that they're engaging with the low propensity voters.
Right.
And we set up
there are a lot of them too on our
side.
There
are a lot. Yeah. And we brought a lot of people in 2024, people who were really first-time Republican voters, swung a lot of independents, or we got first-time, voters, period. And I think they gave us a chance. And based on what they're seeing happen, based on the results, inflation coming down, a secure southern border, strength on the world stage, trade agreements being made despite everybody, shouting about the tariffs, all these incredible things, all this investment in America. I think come 2026, we have to remind these people, this is what you voted for, this is what happened, and we need you to come back out. So they understand we have a great model that we used in 2024. Yes. They're going to implement that as well. And Casey Crosby was our treasurer at the RNC. She took my role as co-chair, and she's going to be great. And I think, the one thing that I would advise them that I think was very important is communicating with the voters. Because if you notice, in all the early voting, we were on top of everything, but we were also communicating with people that we were on top of everything.
So much better than before. Well, Lara, that's the problem. The places that would vote conservative and Republican, we're not seeing visitors like you. We're not seeing President Trump. Well, I mean, they were seeing you guys, but I mean, the people that were in those roles before never went. Yeah. They just assume, well, those are Democrats at the border in those very heavily Latino districts, that they aren't.
Right.
They're all conservative, and you got all of them because of what you did. So congratulations for doing that. Thank you for doing that, and hopefully we can keep it going in 28. I'm always a little bit skittish, though, because the left is really nasty. As you said, what do you call them, slippery?
They're very slippery.
Extremely slippery. It is Lara Trump, not slippery. Make sure you go and check out The Right View, also My View. It's on Fox on Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Check it out. It's the hottest show right now on the network. Thank you for taking the time to do this with me. I really appreciate you. You're the best.
We've had him on the show several times. He's a great American, and he's a guy that the president wanted to be the U.S. attorney out of Washington, D.C. Everything looked great until a Republican turned his back on this guy. His name is Ed Martin. He now, of course, is the director of the Weaponization Working Group and DOJ pardon attorney. Ed, good to see you again. How you doing?
Hey, Joe, I'm great. Great to be back. I love you and your listeners and your viewers, so great to be with you.
What'd you do to Tom Tillis? What exactly? Yeah. What could? And it's funny because my friend John Rich, of course, did his song and he called him Thom the entire time, which I thought was kind of funny. But what is Tom Tillis's deal? The guy obviously is either completely off the reservation on January 6th and people having the right to be defended, or there's something else going on. What do you think that's all about?
Yeah, funny, Joe, you got right where I got to say you covered the bases. Look, I respect the process. I was going through the Senate process, talking to different senators. He basically said, if I get to the floor of the Senate, I have the votes. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So the question is, why is this getting jammed up? You know, I met with him for a long time. He talked about January 6th in a way that made me think he really was captured by what I call the J6 hoax, you know, and then you and I have talked 100 times about it off the air, on the air. If you hit a cop, even if you're in the middle of a riot, you don't get away with hitting a cop. No problem. We're all for accountability. But somewhere between people that got out of control at a riot and this insurrection that Liz Cheney, stage managed, so I don't know, Joe, with a couple of days, kind of distance, I kind of agree with people that say there was something else going on. I think the something else was in the clubby atmosphere of the Senate, having a prosecutor in D.C. who's going to go after everybody and go after all the fraud and all the corruption probably made him nervous. The funny thing is now they got Judge Jeanine Pirro, and she cares even less about what they think of her than I do. So it's going to be, but it is what it is. And the President Trump always does this, turns a setback into a gain, and we're going to do a lot of good things.
Yeah, but what I don't get is he literally said these words: I'd be fine with him being a U.S. attorney anywhere else except for Washington, D.C. That doesn't make sense. I mean, either you're somebody who's qualified for the job of U.S. attorney anywhere, or you're not. I mean, when he said that, did that make you go, what?
Yeah. That's and Senator Norm Coleman actually was one of the people helping me through this. He said he employed this test. Does the person have the ability to do the job? Can he do it? Lawyer, all these things, and the character. And Tom Tillis basically said, he's got the character and the ability to do a job, just not here. And I just think, again, this is the power of our Constitution. It allows this to happen this way. And remember what President Trump, very kind how he said it. What he said when he announced he was going to do something else, he said, I just don't want to use my chits to fight this fight because he knew he had Judge Jeanine in his hip pocket and he had me to go over to DOJ and so on we go and in my case up we go and we'll see what happens. But look, Joe, you've been on this forever, but I feel like it's a now or never moment. When guys like Tom Tillis stop President Trump's appointments, when they are not shooting straight, we're in a now or never moment. We don't have time to mess around with a clubby atmosphere. We've got to get after it, and that's what we're doing, and I'm looking forward to it.
I want to move on past that, but just if you don't mind, just give me this. Tillis doesn't seem to understand that every single person charged with any crime on January 6th has the right to a defense. That's all you did. Yeah. You defended people. Yeah. Now, you and I agree, because we have talked about this a lot. If you rioted, you're in trouble. If you vandalized, you're in trouble. If you punched a cop, you're in trouble. Nobody is for those things. But there were people taking selfies inside of the people's house, inside of the chamber. Yeah. There are people who are just on the grounds who got arrested and were charged with stopping an official session, things that they didn't do. Why doesn't Tom Tillis think that these people have the right to a defense, and a defense from a guy like you? If I'm in trouble, I'm going to call you. Why don't those people get the same rights as anybody else? What is there a brand? Because you seem to be giving me two answers, which I agree with both of them, kind of. Either he's really captured by the thing that's been out there about January 6th, or he's got something else going on. So which one could it be? They deserve a defense, don't they, Ed?
Yeah. Look, first, one thing, the nastiness in this country towards lawyers who are trying to do the job that we have is unbelievable, and it's weaponized government. If I met with today, Dean Eastman, he came in the office about something else. They targeted by design the powers that be targeted lawyers to stop them from representing President Trump, individuals. This is crazy, and the balance of our justice system is off base if you're not doing it. And what I told Tom Tillis was at the highest level, Merrick Garland and Lisa Monaco, they used this 1512 charge to destroy Americans by jamming them into prison. And a bipartisan Supreme Court struck it down and said you shouldn't have done that. And those people got out of jail after losing their lives for 3+ years. So this is a weaponization of our system against us. And I don't know how Tom Tillis could not see that, but he ranted and raved about January 6th like a guy who thought, he said, anybody who's dumb enough to go in the Capitol deserves what they get. And I'm thinking, the cops let him in for hundreds of people. Is that your standard?
We got it on video. It's on video.
Let me just finish, Joe. Say this. What you said at the end, you got to say, after all that, somebody's hiding something. And in my opinion, Tom Tillis maybe took a one for the team to not have a guy like me in, because I was looking at Schiff and Schumer and all these people for corruption. So I don't know, is there honor among senators or honor among thieves or whatever the phrase is in Shakespeare? But I just got to say, I'm happy to go through the process and follow President Trump's lead, and off we go.
Ed Martin, Director, Weaponization Working Group and DOJ pardon attorney. I want to take us back to 16 if we can. I know that you don't have an hour to talk to me, but in 2016, James Comey, he of the photographic memory, walks out and for 14 minutes tells everybody on planet Earth on a live camera why Hillary Clinton broke the law and why she broke many laws and why he thinks that enemies of the United States probably were able to get classified and top secret stuff off of her server because her device was in those regions. And then at the end of it, he said, but nobody's going to prosecute her. Have a good day. And what the hell was that? And will there ever be hell to pay? This is a guy that literally prosecuted successfully Martha Stewart, yet let Hillary Clinton get away with giving away basically the farm to anybody who wanted it overseas. What can you tell me about what really went on there? How exactly does she get away with that?
Well, I haven't yet. I guess it's another challenge for me, Joe, to go back and look at that. I haven't looked at that one. I did have somebody in, a whistleblower, who had some details on the Anthony Weiner laptop and what they saw in there. I was consulting with somebody, so we need to get to the bottom of. Look, I thought you were going to say this. I mean, Comey at this point has put himself in the middle of almost all the jackpots, almost all the major misconduct, including in the last couple of days. He's been the guy that's out there.
Well, let me stop you. Well, Ed, I was just sort of setting the stage. And the reason why I brought up Hillary Clinton, because the next step is Russia collusion. The next step is Donald Trump is at some hotel in Russia doing disgusting things. I don't understand. Everybody but everybody on that side, and even some people in the middle, thought that Hillary Clinton was going to clean Donald Trump's clock. Can you tell me now, as this guy who's on the weaponization now, can you tell me why they weaponized against the Trump campaign? Did they think that he was going to win? Is that why they went after him? They sort of gave Hillary Clinton a pass on everything she did wrong. Then they made up this dossier, this Christopher Steele piece of garbage, and they had it spread through, like wildfire. Why were they weaponizing the government, the DOJ, against Donald Trump when nobody thought he had a chance to win?
No, that's easy, Joe. I agree they didn't think he was going to win. The establishment needed to get rid of Trump and the Republican Party. I mean, in other words, this was supposed to be the end of Trump. So because this populist movement, this MAGA movement in 2016 needed to end, because they needed to go back to Jeb and to people like Jeb. And so, what Phyllis Schlafly, for whom I worked for many years, she used to say is that, now you'll hear people call it the uniparty, but she would say that there's the elites. The elites are in both parties. They control everything. And so they wanted Trump gone because Trump went through and beat, Jeb and Scott Walker and all these different folks. Yes. And those were all people that the establishment had groomed to be manageable, certainly Jeb, right, to play the role that they wanted. So, Phyllis Schlafly wrote A Choice, Not an Echo, and it was about how the Republican Party was led by the Eastern elites and how they kept messing it up. The same thing could be written about by time you get to 2016, the new elites, the second Bush elites were trying to run things, Rove and all, and Donald Trump was a choice, not an echo, that shattered their system. They wanted him gone.
Well, Ed, they got away with it. So now let's fast forward to what you said about 2 days ago. They got away with it. Brennan's still out there acting like he's got some authority. Comey's still out there acting like he's got some moral authority, even though he just said 86-47. And I guess behind Gretchen Whitmer, one of her live shots back a few years ago, said 86-45. This seems to be code that they want to get rid of the current president of the United States, who, of course, 2 times that we know of, somebody tried to kill the guy. So why do you think they haven't crawled back into their hole? Comey and Brennan and the entire McCabe, Strzok, Page, they all got away with it. Why are they still yapping? Do they think they could still turn us against President Trump? Why are they still relevant in their own minds?
Well, I mean, look, Joe, you know, kids. I mean, when you talk about your kids, if you don't modify behavior, they're going to keep thinking they can get away with it. I mean, that's one of the things I would say. Some of these people have to have the behavior modified, and dramatically so. By the way, that's not code or mobster talk for anything other than prosecute the hell out of people and also name them. I mean, what James Comey did with this 86-47 is despicable conduct. It's beneath anyone, let alone a guy who ran a major agency and was supposedly a big leader or whatever. And by the way, I love saying this. He does that 2 weeks before he's going out to sell a book. I mean, Jussie Smollett wasn't selling albums as fast as Comey is pushing his book. So we have to name these people and then hold them accountable. But why they get away with it? In truth, they got away with it, Joe, because we let them. And we have to be the ones that say we're not going to let them. For example, Crossfire Hurricane, it's a long way off. There might be statute of limitations run on a bunch of crimes, but we still even know the documents. They're still not, they're not redacted. We're dealing with like code and all. We've got to get sunshine and transparency. The American people will forgive less arrests or prosecutions if we show them what the hell happened. And that's the thing that the president said to me, get there and fight for this, because we've got to get to the bottom of what's gone on. In our working group, we're checking out why they target the Catholics. Who did that in the FBI? Why they target the school board parents? And who did that? And get to the bottom. Name names, name and shame, prosecute when you can. And here's what Tom Tillis did jump on me for this, Joe. He said, I heard you're for reparations. I said, reparations is a stupid term used by racists to try to make us fight over slavery. What I will say is, if you wrong someone by using government, you should have to pay them to get them whole. It's not like Strzok and Page got paid because they're on the same side of the ledger.
Stunning.
That's an outrage. That's despicable. That's scummy behavior. But if you're locked in jail for 3 years because of 1512 charge that Lisa Monaco, dreamed up to jam on you, you're damn right you ought to get your rent back, and you ought to get your job back, and you ought to get something back, because you can't get those 3 years back. And that's American, right? That's what we got to do if we're going to be serious about the moment we're in.
At Eagle Ed Martin over on X. Go follow him there. He is the director of the Weaponization Working Group and DOJ pardon attorney. Last couple of things on Comey. James Comey is a guy that really, I believe that he thinks that he's a moral, god of some sort. It's very strange to watch him speak. But again, we know he lied to the FISA court. We know that they were actually planting news stories and using the news stories as a reason to re-up the illegal warrants against Trump Tower. We know all those things happen. Are we beyond the statute of limitations? Can you look into that? Because that certainly is weaponization of the DOJ against somebody who was Hillary Clinton's, chief competitor in that election. They lied some more, and nobody has ever paid even one. Has anybody even interviewed James Comey on an official level about the lies that he told to the FISA judge?
Well, I'm not sure about the FISA one. I can tell you that he's being interviewed maybe as we speak by the folks that after what he did in terms of threatening the president of the United States. So that's gotten serious very fast for him, and he's going to deal with that. Your question about can we investigate? The answer is yes. And I don't really care about statute of limitations in the sense that you can't get to the bottom and find out who actually did what if you don't get to the truth. And so you have to. And let me be clear. There's lots of charges that don't have statute of limitations. RICO passed in the early 70s as a tool. It took to the 80s until they figured out how to really use it. And it took a guy named Giuliani to understand how to really use it. And RICO gets you out of statute of limitations if it's an ongoing conspiracy to do something. So there's plenty of ways to be smart about it. But again, we got to get true about it, get real about it, and then try to hold accountable the people that did it in whatever way we can. And I'm confident we'll be able to find that. We'll find the truth, and we'll also get accountability if we keep fighting for it. And when I switched this job, the president sent me a message. He said, keep fighting, keep fighting, keep fighting. If there's anybody that he doesn't need to inspire me more, he's the guy that's doing it. So, we got to get after it.
It's Ed Martin. We always appreciate the time and the access. One of the biggest, most glaring pieces of evidence about weaponization would be the January 6th fake committee. That committee being produced by an ABC producer. It was made for television. It was an ill-formed, illegally formed, actually, committee because they didn't allow the Republicans to have who they wanted on the committee. And now they've all been pardoned, Ed. They've all been pardoned. So how does that work? Biden pardons everybody. Please take it from there. Go ahead.
Let me make some news for you, and you can make sure you post this because you're the first one I'm saying it to. They tried to pardon everybody, and they did pardon some of the key people. But one of the worst actors in this is named Mary McCord. She's at Georgetown. She's been at the center of some of the nastiest stuff that's happened in 10 years. She refused to become a full staff member. I had a whistleblower in my office today, and Mary McCord, because she's so important, she didn't want to become a full staffer, a full-time staffer for the Unselect Committee on J6. So she stayed as a consultant. Consultants are not covered by the pardon. So Mary McCord is not covered, and Mary McCord is somebody we need to talk to. And frankly, Liz Cheney and everybody else needs to tell us, because they did get a pardon. They have no excuse. You can't say, I don't want to talk. You have to talk, and we'll talk about Mary McCord and see what happened. Look, there's two things. We're going to get to the bottom of the Select Committee, the Unselect Committee. The second thing is the pardons were done by Joe Biden at a time where the Democrats are now saying he was of diminished capacity, and the pardons are of such extraordinary, unprecedented, unheard of, almost nonsensical scope back 10 years, 14 years. Now we have an auto pen. We have the testimony of the Democrats that he was not all there, and we have unprecedented conduct. We got to get to the bottom of it because they may be not valid. Now, I'm a guy that says the pardon power is plenary. It is in the Constitution. You can use it any way you want if you're president. But if you're not competent, you can't do things. You can't use it any way you want. You're being abused. And so we'll get to the bottom of the Unselect Committee and Liz Cheney. Mary McCord is on the top of the list. But after that, we'll also get to the bottom of these pardons and see if they really were valid. And if they were, okay. If they weren't, then we'll have other conversations, and that'll be very important.
Some of your best witnesses are the legacy media, Ed. They're writing books now. Jake Tapper can't wait to get his book out there. I was wrong the whole time. He was in cognitive decline starting in 2020. Is there anything, I know it's not in the Constitution. There wasn't such a thing as auto pen in the Constitution. But doesn't the president literally have to at least be of sound mind, as you just alluded to, and sign it with his own hand? Can you sign a pardon with an auto pen? Which is a machine?
No, look, Joe, years ago, I was chief of staff to the governor in Missouri. Great guy. His name's Matt Blunt, and he was super. And there was a time where you learned this. There are things that can be, you can assign your consent. It's really about a consent. And so unless there's a specific statute that says you have to hold it in your hand and sign it, I think you can probably understand that tool would work. Donald Trump refuses to use it because there's no such thing as an auto Sharpie, right? So he's not going to let that happen. But I don't think we should quibble over that part. What we should say is, can you give your consent to use a tool if you don't have capacity? And that's the question. And guys like Ron Klain and Anita Dunn, who are described as the people in charge of Biden in these times, if they're manipulating the guy, it's like if someone has a lot of money at the end of their life and one of the kids comes in and talks him into changing the will. Well, One of the things that's going to happen is we got to have a conversation about if they were of sound mind. You could change your will for any reason, but if you're not in good mind, in sound mind, you can't. And that's what, look, as you point out, Jake Tapper is testifying for the question of a competence of the president. And so, I'll take him at his word and we'll get to the bottom of it.
And maybe even more importantly, Robert Hur said that he was not of sound mind to stand trial. He should have been prosecuted, but he's a well-meaning elderly gentleman with a bad memory. It's Ed Martin. Ed, I just take up a little more of your time, and we'll let you go. Come back all the time. I love that you're on this committee now that you're actually you're the director of this working group. Let me ask you about January 6th specifically. I want to know about the pipe bomber. Will we find out who the hell that was? It's been all these years now, and it's like the media wanted it to go away. The deep state wanted it to go away. I don't want it to go away. There's something going on here.
Yeah, so Joe, let me do this because I'm glad. Thank you. Thanks for the chance to talk to your great listeners and talk to you. You're natural for me to talk to.
Thank you.
I got in the job. On day one as U.S. Attorney in D.C. On day one, we pardoned almost 1,600 J6ers and processed them. On day three, we pardoned 2 cops that had been railroaded on murder charges by the prosecutor in my office, and Donald Trump pardoned them. We let the cops get back to their jobs, and those 2 went back to work, and our community of cops was like, they're on our side. A day later, we've actually pardoned all the pro-lifers that had been targeted under the FACE Act, and they got pardoned. So when people say, what have you guys been doing? Well, a hell of a lot, right? A hell of a lot. And that's real, and that's what's going on. One of the things that happened is when Bongino got in, I called him up and I said, we got to get to the bottom of the pipe bomb, because that's in my office, the prosecutor, and in his FBI, our investigators. What we found was the FBI had changed out all the investigators to get fresh eyes on this. And that actually happened before Bongino, but I got our prosecutors to take a second look. What happened was for 4 years, the Bidens ignored it. They did nothing. Like, they just sat around and said, I guess we can't find him. Has anyone turned themselves in? Oh, no, they haven't turned themselves in. I guess we can't find him. So I will say this. We got better leads. We got a couple of hot leads. We've got more people on this thing. And I say all the time, the pipe bomb wasn't a distraction or a hoax. It was a piece of this puzzle, because they wanted to say to the world, in America on January 6th, there was a riot with bombs at the heads of the political parties. It's unbelievable. So yes, we're going to get to the bottom of it. Yes, we're going to find the person. We're hot. I think we're hot on the trail. I hope that we get that news really quick, but we're not going to stop until we get it. And we're going to get it. We're America. We're not going to get stuck. We're not going to have pipe bombs at our major political parties.
Right.
But the number of times, Joe, that the Biden administration sat on something for 4 years and just ignored it because it wasn't their priority, you just look at it and shake your head and say, it's not that they were weaponizing government. In this case, they were not doing government. They were not being government. They were ignoring what should be done. And it happened all the time under Biden in his 4 years. They're lost years for these kinds of things like an investigation. And we got to make up time, and we got to do it. And the public is going to be pleased when we get these people.
What you just said really jumped out at me. I didn't think about it. They wanted to be able to say there were bombs along with the so-called insurrection on January 6th, because then they could say it is an armed insurrection. They had bombs, they had explosives. Now we can use the insurrection clause. We could use the third section of the 14th Amendment to stop Trump from running again. I mean, quite literally, this could have been just to stop Trump.
That's right. And let me go one step further, Joe.
Please.
You're a communicator. You're a master communicator all these decades. And what you have also on the morning of January 6th, 5 guys get out of a van. They wheel across on wheels, plywood across. And at 6:35 in the morning, they set up a fake gallows. But they're so sophisticated, they leave and they come back at 1 o'clock with power tools. They put the crossbeam on, they hang the noose, and along comes every reporter and every photograph of the Capitol with a noose. It was staged. It wasn't a real gallows. It wasn't a real noose. It was nonsense. But you have a noose. People were yelling, hang Mike Pence. There was a riot. Cops were hit, and there were bombs at the political headquarters of both parties. By the time you're done, you have to write 2 sentences, and it sounds like America's in the middle of a revolution. And it was all a hoax. And so unpeel the hoax, break the hoax, and guys like Tom Tillis are going to be shamed and embarrassed, but at least they're not going to walk around thinking that we almost lost America. We almost lost America because Biden and his team wanted to do it, and whatever they did to the election, we'll find that out too, they went forward and covered up what really happened. So there's a lot of work to do, but Joe, I said it earlier, it's now or never in this country. It's now or never in this Republican Party. It's now or never in everything we're doing to get to the bottom of this and hell, just get on with our lives away from these broken, sick things and people what they did to us.
Ed Martin, go follow him at Eagle Ed Martin. He's the Director of Weaponization Working Group and DOJ Pardon Attorney. Last question. This is the first thing anybody asks me about anything when it comes to the DOJ, whether on Facebook or I'm on TikTok or I'm out live somewhere. They want to know, why aren't we seeing people in handcuffs? You've already alluded to it in this interview, and thank you for giving me so much time. Just give me, if you don't mind, just a 30 seconds or so to those watching and listening, why we're not seeing people taken away every single day in handcuffs. I know that you're doing the work. You want to make sure you cross all the T's and dot the I's, but from you, it'll sound better.
Well, nobody's going to give us the image, the image that they get the other side when they stage all this stuff, right? They give them a fake noose and all. So they won't give it. I'll just tell you what I did. On day one, I came in, I raised my hand, I took the oath. I told you, an hour later, we had 1,600 J6ers released. And I swear, when I write my memoir, Joe, I'll come back and tell you, that night, we got Elon Musk driving to jails to get people out so they can go home. And the next 3 days, I'm signing the pardon applications to stop these judges and these prosecutors from keeping guys in jail, because after they arrested them for fake January 6th, they went and found guns in their place, and they did, right? So that's day one. Day 5, I fired 23, I think it was, prosecutors who worked on January 6th. Every single prosecutor that worked for Jack Smith, everyone now is out of DOJ. That's not my doing, by the way. That's Emil Bove and Todd Blanche and these guys hard charging. Right. So on and on and on. The day before I left and my job and Judge Janine took over, I demoted one more J6er, a guy that was a J6er guy. He had some other issues, and we demoted him. You can't fire these people. It's like tenure. They got tenure in these places. So you're fighting like hand to hand to try to change the direction. And everybody I know, from Sean Duffy to Kash Patel to Tulsi Gabbard, is fighting this fight like this. It's like being in occupied France in World War II. You're actually trying to get the real people to stick with you while you're trying to figure out who's Vichy and who's actually German. And that's what's going on. So I just tell people, be pissed. It's not happening faster. I'm with you. Keep after us. But understand, we're in this fight. And by the way, what I get for my troubles, they called me this name and that name. I'm on the front page of the Washington Post every day. And I'm a nobody. I'm like the local prosecutor. Why? Because the last thing they can have is the real fighters going like this. And by the way, it's not me special. It's not special to me. It's what Donald Trump does. And all over the place, there's people doing this. And I just would say, anybody that really doubts it, go check out my X feed, whatever, and watch us. And just know we're fighting as hard as we can.
And I love it. I think I like you in this new position better than the old position, although I thought you were overqualified for the old one. It is Ed Martin, Director of Weaponization Working Group and the DOJ Pardon Attorney. Come back anytime you want to get some more stuff out there. Thank you so much for all the time today. And let's do it again soon, okay?
Okay, Joe. Thanks for everything. We appreciate you.